Hi there, I am Lynn Muth. I am an avid, sometimes called a rabid gardener. I've been gardening all my life, and I'm passionate about helping other people become avid or rabid gardeners. If you have a black thumb, we'll help you turn that at least into a brown one.
Hi, I'm Ramona Howard, and like Lynn, I'm also an avid gardener, but unlike Lynn, I totally suck at it. So even though I'm a master gardener, I consider myself a newbie. Lynn and I decided to finally get together and create a show for people who are just getting started. For those that don't know me in the community, they probably know our garden. Our garden is the Big Blue Victorian on Mill Street that several years back we turned the whole front yard into a garden, and past a year or so we built the white greenhouse out there. So that's my daughters and myself. So we want to welcome you to Homegrown, where we hope to help educate our community on how to take their lawns and turn them into grocery stores. So let's get started. So hi, welcome to another edition of Homegrown, where Lynn and I are, and many others in the community are going to hopefully help those out there get started gardening. We're going to teach you how to turn your lawns into grocery stores. But before we get started, we're going to introduce our guests, and our first guest is Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Smith. Been gardening. This is probably my second real year of gardening, and we're just looking to have really nice organic food for our family.
And our next guest is Melanie. Melanie, can you tell us a little bit about your gardening experience?
Yeah, I'm in Rough and Ready, and we're about 1,900 feet, and I've been gardening here for about 8 years now. It's quite challenging because of our red dirt and all of our critters. So I do have it, a small garden caged up so that the deers stay out of it, and raised beds.
How tall is your fence?
It's about 8 feet. Yeah, it has to be that high.
So welcome to the show.
Hi, Ramona.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Oh, I meant to tell you, one of my Half Moon Bay friends is a real good Facebook friend of mine, and she's a gardener also. She and two other of my friends shared the program.
Oh, geez.
And I got really good feedback from them.
Wonderful.
And one woman said, oh my gosh, this is so timely. My husband and I were about to not start seeds this year because we've always had such failure that it's just too frustrating, and who needs it right now?
Yeah.
But she said, what you said and what you talked about was so encouraging that we went out and got more seeds, and we're going to start seeds. And I'm like, wow.
How exciting that we're able to reach outside just our little local community. So how are you holding up? I mean,
good days and bad days.
Yeah, you know what? To me, it seems like it hits on Tuesdays for some reason. I think it just and you would think it would hit on like Friday. But
you know what, Ramona, you're right. Last Tuesday was a day of absolutely no inertia.
Yeah, and I've just noticed every Tuesday it's been like
that's
anxiety's a little higher, or I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Someone said one day, oh, you have the energy of a slug. I said, no, that's an upgrade. I'm more like a ripe banana.
So I hope you all had an opportunity to get out in the gardens this weekend.
Actually, I was out this morning. I'm digging up yarrow and giving it to the world. Yeah, you did, didn't you? You got to weed again.
Yeah, weeding is my therapy.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because who cares? You can just rip it out. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be very careful with it.
That's true. That's true.
So Lynn, we're going to jump over to you, and if you could tell us what today's topic is.
I don't know. What is today's topic? Oh, today's topic is, well, it was various things. We're talking a little bit about seed starting. We're talking about what grows, what to plant now. And we kind of suggested maybe some soil amendment stuff. And I think Melanie wants to talk about that, because once you get those seeds started, you know, and they're popping up like little babies do, and hopefully you need to start thinking about what you're going to put them in, where they're going to spend the rest of their lives.
Right. I do have a question about the seeds. Is right now a good time to start all seeds if you're not putting them in the ground? So I know my daughter has pumpkins started in her greenhouse and they look great, but it's like, I think you're a little too early on those. No?
Way too early.
Yeah.
Nighttime temperatures need to be consistently 55 degrees. And last night, I believe it got, I don't know at your places, but I know it got to about 44 at mine.
Right.
And yeah. And the soil temperature needs to be 65 maybe degrees. Soil temperature right now, and I live downtown Grass Valley, soil temperature right now is 40 degrees. It just finally hit 40 degrees. So
Right.
if you were to put things like that in the ground right now, they would die immediately. It's
Right. I
too
think
cold.
these pumpkins are going to be living in her greenhouse for some time.
I would, and when with pumpkins, if they're not in a pretty good sized container, put them in a gallon container so there's a lot of, you know, room for them to grow.
Yeah, I think that's what she's going to have to do.
Yeah.
So if you have a greenhouse, it's okay to pretty much start anything, is what I'm hearing.
You have greenhouse with heating.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times people will be all excited because they got those little plasticky metal frame kind of thingies, and they're like, yay, I have a greenhouse. And I feel really badly for them because they don't work up here. It's either too hot in the summer to use them or too cold in the winter. And if you don't have a heat source in your greenhouse with our cold winters, you know, it's just not a really good idea. I mean, it's just kind of useless.
Yeah.
Yeah. I use heat mats. You can buy them pretty inexpensively, and they last a long time, and that keeps your soil temperature really warm.
Right. So what are just to kind of reiterate what we did last week, and then we'll do this every week, is just kind of keep reiterating what people should be doing right now, is what are the seeds or plants that should go in the ground right now? Not what we're doing in our greenhouses, but what goes in the ground.
As we speak, radishes, onions, maybe too late for potatoes. I'll let you guys know in a month. I just planted some again. All the green leafies, lettuces, kale, spinach, collards. Melanie's a big fan of collards. All those green leafy vegetables are perfect right now. Peas, I just planted my second crop of sweet peas. I love sweet peas.
Melanie, what do you do? Do you plant directly in the ground, or do you have a greenhouse?
Well, I have little raised beds, and I'm planting my seeds directly into the soil there. Right now, I've got little carrots popping up. My radishes are getting pretty plump. They've been in for a couple weeks now. I've got the sugar snap peas.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably a good 8 inches already.
Nice.
Because we're a little warmer than where Lynn's at.
Yeah.
So our stuff jumps up a little quicker.
Yeah. What about beets? Is that okay right now?
Yep.
Beets, okay.
Yep. I've got beets going.
Yeah, all root vegetables, right, Mel?
Yeah, and you know what? I cut my collard greens about a month ago, like cut them way back, and already I've got new leaves just sprouting out of the top where I cut them way low. So that's continuing.
Nice.
For me.
That's nice.
How about you, Sandy? You got anything in the ground right now or in your greenhouse?
Yeah, I don't have a greenhouse, unfortunately, but I've got spinach and parsley, and strawberries are starting to bloom and produce, and a lot of lettuce and turnips.
Hard to remember, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We have basil coming out our ears.
Oh, yeah. That sounds good.
protect it because it does not like cold weather at all.
No, not at all. And they look so great in the greenhouse. So we're just, not going to push it this year.
What kind of basils do you have, Ramona?
I have no idea. All I was the free labor. Come help me put the seeds in. So, yeah. So I think every one but one plant looks great.
Wow.
It's a pretty
So-
good ratio.
I'm sorry.
That's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, for what, $1.79 or whatever a seed packet is. So Lynn, let's talk about the soil amendments. We tried to touch on it a little bit last time, but what are some easy suggestions for folks?
Well, let's start with Melanie because she
Okay.
and I were talking last week and she had a question about it.
Okay, good. We'll go to Melanie then.
Question, Mel.
Well, I wanted to ask about my compost pile because I have chickens and rabbits, and every time I clean their cage, I just put it in a big pile. I've been layering it about a 50-50 ratio with greens and browns, but I wasn't sure if I could use it yet because of the temperature we were talking about. It needed to heat up to a certain temperature. And yesterday, me and the granddaughter were out there putting some worms that we found down into it. We dug a little bit, probably about 4 to 6 inches down. We dug in there, and my hand was hot. It felt like it was about 95 degrees in there.
Oh, you would have fried those worms like crazy. Yeah, that's the way you tell if your compost, especially animal compost, animal manures, they have to really age for a long time to get that hot heat out of there. I mean, that's hot activity going on in there, and it will kill any seed you put in there. So yeah, too early.
Yeah.
Yep.
I used to work out at one of the animal sanctuaries, and we would pile our animal manure, and 3 years later, it combusted. So
Mhm.
Oh,
it's like,
Yeah. So turn it a lot.
yeah.
When I used to have horses at the stables, we would clean the barn out or clean the huge barn out, and we would tarp it and put the date on it. And sometimes in the summertime when we would do that with the heat from the sun and the heat from the compost, it would melt that tar
oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
because it
Wow.
can get that hot. Yeah, it can get that
Wow.
hot. So yeah, you're just going to have to work that. Oh my goodness, I'm jealous. I'm envious of your.
So
Of
I
your
just
animal food.
I bought some all-purpose fertilizer at one of the local garden centers, and the dry, I think it was like a 522, and so I dug that down into my raised beds right now. Not using that compost yet.
Yeah, and those numbers, those 522, that's a lot of nitrogen, which is really good for leafy greens right now. But when you want to start encouraging more root growth and more not vegetation, but flowering, like for pumpkins and that sort of stuff, then you need to switch to a higher middle number, the phosphorus.
Nice. So what I'm hearing is if somebody has, whether it be chicken manure or cow manure or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It probably isn't a smart idea to put that right in the bed and then plant.
No.
It laughs.
No.
And why not? What, I mean,
Well, because it's very hot.
yeah, I made that mistake.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah, several years back.
Oops. Well,
Why isn't it growing?
I was talking to a distant friend last night, not distant in our friendship, but distant in the fact that she lives in Sweden. And we were talking about this very same thing and about how, it's hard to know when. And I was telling Mel when we were talking last week that you can literally stick your hand in the pile. And if you feel heat on your hand, it's too hot.
Yeah. And this is the things that people should be doing now is prepping their beds and getting them ready to take those starters out and putting them in the ground. So if we've made my mistake, like put manure in the planter and then plant in the plants, all that work is down the drain.
Yeah, it is. If you have fresh compost and let's say, this is mid-April, and if you were going to plant the end of May, it would probably be okay if you put that raw compost in your bed now, but not too thickly.
Okay.
Because in a month it should have composted.
Got it.
If you put it thinly in the bed, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Andy, did that answer or Melanie, did that answer your question? With what
it did.
That, what you should be doing with all that crap.
That's right. Compost it.
That's called black gold right there.
That is black gold.
That there stuff is black gold.
Lynn, is there any particular manure that you find better? Chicken manure, cow manure, whatever else we got. Is there any particular kind that you think works better?
I think it's a personal preference, and it also has to do, in Melanie's case, it has to do with what critters you're raising, and that's your black gold. If you have access to a friend that has a stable, I mean, when I had my horse, it was wonderful because I would just go out there and fill buckets and bags, and I had free access to that. And living where we live, which is such a gorgeous place, and we're so fortunate to live in such a gorgeous place with all the animals, almost everybody knows somebody that's got an animal. If I could have my pick of, what a topic of conversation, gardeners. That's funny. If I could have my pick of manures, I would choose alpaca or llama.
Really?
Because, yes, you can use them straight out of the chute. They can literally stand over your garden and do their business, and you can work it right in because they have so many stomachs that by the time it is exiting their bodies, it has already worked through all the urine and all the stuff that gets mixed in there. I don't want to get really technical on animal manure. Yeah.
So we're gonna have a run on alpaca shit is what we're gonna have.
Yeah. Well, and every now and then the alpaca farms will advertise that, or put the word out that they want to get rid of it, and people just come in and grab it. I mean, it's the best because you can use it immediately. They all have varying degrees of nutrients. They're all high in nitrogen, but some of them have a little more phosphorus than other, and some of them, even within that category of manures, there are even more, some that have more nitrogen than others. So, and again, I don't want to get too technical because then everybody's eyes glaze over.
Right, and that's where we start losing people. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to start this little show, was to make it easy for people. We as master gardeners tend to forget when we were learning and forget all the things that were so confusing. So we are, we're trying to break it down. What should you do right now today? And what I'm hearing is root vegetables in the ground right now today, leafy vegetables in the ground right now today. And then if you do have a acceptable greenhouse, then it's okay to start all those other vegetables that are going to be in a month or two.
Right, and I've seen my friends that didn't have a greenhouse but had a really sunny window. They've started starts in their sunny windows, So wherever you can find a place. I know back when I was a kid, the refrigerators used to be really hot on the top, and that's where we would start a lot of seeds, was on the top of the refrigerator. Now they don't do that anymore. They don't emit the heat.
Right.
But it's the heat that you're wanting first until they break ground. And then after that, they need sunshine. Right. But right now is a good time to get your bed ready. Get those weeds out of there. And if you've got a bed you want to work on that's absolutely filled with weeds and you can't even stand the thought of doing that, you can do something that's called, it's part of no-till gardening. It's part of Back to Eden. There's a whole bunch of theories about no-till gardening, and you can literally lay cardboard on top of the weeds, cut them down pretty low, lay cardboard over them, put compost over that, composted manures, rice straw. I prefer rice straw because it seems to carry less weed seeds than wheat straw.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't decompose as quickly, but it's a really good amendment to put into your soil.
Right. That's exactly how we built our beds, was to get rid of all that crabgrass, was we laid cardboard down, a pretty thick layer of it, piled the existing dirt on top of it, built our beds, and almost did like a lasagna layering with the rice straw, because we couldn't afford all that soil to be brought in to fill those beds. And
Right.
it worked really well for us. We've got one bed that we must not have got very good with the cardboard, because the crabgrass every now and then sneaks up in there. But all the other beds, it's so incredibly easy to maintain. And then what we did between all of our beds was we filled it with decomposed granite. So it calms that down and keeps those weeds.
Melanie, is that Melanie?
That sounds nice.
Yeah, and it's inexpensive. Decomposed granite is fairly inexpensive. You put a thick layer of that, and it compacts down. And then there is there's something else you can purchase to spray over the top of it, and it almost becomes like concrete.
Wow.
But I like it because we can take the hula hoe, which is the greatest invention of all times, and weed super easily. So, okay, Sandy, did you have any burning questions for Lynn?
Well, on the subject of manures, I had heard that you could use rabbit manure
Directly.
just the same as the alpaca you're talking about. Is that true?
Usually, yeah, because I think they have the same sort of stomach system. I'm not an animal. I don't know exactly how their little internal stuff works, but I think it's just about as mild as alpaca and alfalfa.
Nice.
I'll have to research that. I'll get back to you on that. I'll get back to you.
Nice. All right, so we're about to close out our show. And is there any last minute questions that you guys have for Lynn?
No question. So, when you start your seeds and they start getting to the point where you're fertilizing them, or their true leaves come out, is that when you shut off the heat mass, or not yet?
No, because they're still very, very fragile. And I probably won't shut those heat mats off until nighttime temperatures are consistently 55 degrees. Now, I'll shut them off in the daytime when it's warm, because in that greenhouse on those heat mats, it can get up to like 120 degrees. In fact, I'm watching it really carefully now. I made the mistake years ago. I left the heat mats on, and I had a last bit of a big flat of marigolds I was growing, and I went off to work, and it got up to about 80, and I came home, and those were dead. I mean, totally dead, yeah. And they were probably about that tall.
Oh.
So, I should have started hardening them off then. But
Yeah.
so I really watched those, and those heat mats will go off and on and off and on and off and on.
Yeah, we have a temperature sensor on ours. So when it reaches a certain degrees inside the greenhouse, it shuts the electricity off to all of those. Because otherwise, I mean, who has the time? Who has the time to? Unless you're Lynn.
Downtown, aren't you? Yeah. Just fancy downtown.
But you did mention something that is really important. Now is a great time to start hardening our plants. And a lot of people are like, "What's that?" And it's like, "Oh, it's nice and sunny outside. Bring your flat out and just set it outside, and then don't forget it."
Don't forget it. Babysitting, I call it. Yeah, because you can't just take your babies directly from where you've been growing them and protecting them and just set them out in the sun. It'd be like a 2-year-old kid and just opening the door and say, okay, go play. And they'll just go out there and hurt their little selves. So these are our babies, and you have to really protect them. And morning sun is really, really beneficial. Afternoon sun is brutal. So until they've been out in the morning sun for 3 or 4 hours, and you want to work up to that gradually, until they've been out of the sun, in the sun for 3 or 4 hours, you don't want them to be in the afternoon sun.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good point about that. That's called hardening off.
So, Lynn, is there anything that somebody should absolutely not be doing right now?
Planting your tomatoes outside in zone 7, which is what we are. Tomatoes, optimum temperature requirement for tomatoes is 65 to 80 degrees. And if you're not 65 degrees consistently, then don't plant your warm season veggies right now.
Yeah, and it's so tempting because people go to the the stores and they have these big, beautiful tomato plants, and they think, oh, I can take this home and I can plant it outside, and then that's how you're
if you want to spend money, go right ahead and do it.
Exactly. So gardening is going to be you have to be a little bit of patience. And, as we were talking about the fertilizer stuff, it just reminded me at how confusing it was. From my experience, it was a lot of trial and error, and to not get discouraged. Because it can get really, really confusing. It's when it comes to watering and fertilizing and when and how much and all of that stuff. So that's why I like last week, I recommend people just pick 1 or 2 things to plant and really understand that, and then move on. Right. Okay. Well, we hope this week's episode of Homegrown was helpful. Please don't hesitate to comment in the thread below with any questions, and
ask questions. Yes.
Yeah, ask tons of questions. That's the way we learn. We learn through asking questions and making mistakes. Lots of mistakes. So, Lynn, you want to close our show out with any last minute words of advice?
Well, I think I want to re-emphasize that part about making mistakes. When you go into gardening, please do not expect to be a success continually. Let's hope for little successes. And when you get them, go, yay, I did that right. And when you don't beat yourself up over it. Do some research, talk to a gardener friend. We're so fortunate that we have a large group of master gardeners in Nevada County, and they're always more than helpful to, want to help you become better gardeners. So ask a friend, ask a neighbor. Gardeners are a talky bunch. They love to talk about their successes and failures, and know that they go hand in hand. And I hope everybody enjoys this next week. It's supposed to be up into the 70s. And the nights are going to be 55, but they're not going to stay that way. I've seen a freeze in June 1st. So, keep that in mind.
Yeah, okay. Well, see you next week. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you, gals.
See you in the garden.